Hello, welcome 8-9 Rugby for another week and into the guest chair this week. Scottish rugby writer, content creator, producer, commentator of plenty of games that you will have heard and seen in recent times. Jamie Lyall, it is great to see you again. Welcome to 8-9 Rugby. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you, mate. It's lovely to connect again. Thank you so much for having me on. On a sunny day here in Scotland as well. The sun is coming through my patio doors for the first time in 2026. It must be a sign.
There you go. Well, I hate to tell you, mate, but we've had rainy grey skies here in Canberra, in the nation, in Australia's capital, and it's been awfully Scottish weather, I must say.
Cry me river, mate. Honestly, you get it for 11 months a year. You get about 11 days.
It's still the height of summer, mate. Yeah, good. It's good stuff. Great to have you back on. And so, a quick recap of how this is all working in 2026. Obviously, it's the next evolution of what you know and love from the 8-9 combo. Harry's departure means the combo part has made way for a rotating run of host guests each week rather than permanent co-hosts. And I'm loving this. It's great. It's great fun having different people in each week. And also it opens the door for the return of Harry Jones at some point. And stay tuned on that. I am genuinely hearing very positive signs that could be happening very, very soon. So thank you, mate. It's great to see you again. Great to catch up. We've been talking for half an hour off camera already, so we thought we actually better get going here. Let's get straight into Here's Cheers, which is going to continue in 26. What are you cheering from around the rugby world this weekend? What have you got for me?
Ouais, bien sûr, mon ami, je dis à votre santé parce que.
Oh, you haven't. You're not talking about. You know
where I'm going with this. You? It's the only place that, I mean, look at that work of art. Yeah. Only French, actually, I say that Italian rugby could produce a massive piece like this.
Italy's doing some great jerseys. So for our podcast listeners, we're looking at France and Adidas have released this magnificent sky blue version of the Les Bleus jersey that they'll wear against England just in the final round, isn't it? In Le Crunch. It's a 120th anniversary of French rugby, and it is just absolutely magnificent. And I love that we were both going to cheer this. We didn't coordinate this at all. That's fantastic.
Sitting there, stud showing, 2-footed off the ground. You can't look beyond that. It's a beautiful piece of kit. I think one thing I'm really encouraged by, I think you and I are probably quite similar in this regard, Brett, in terms of blokes who love our stash. But I think as well, one thing I'm a little bit encouraged by over the last couple of years, certainly post-COVID and with the rise, I actually think the women have done a lot to move this along in terms of the Red Rose and some of the elite women's players. I think that crossover with rugby and pop culture and clothing.
I think you might be right.
I did a piece recently actually on Rugby Pass with Paolo Adoglu just before Italy played France a couple of weeks ago. And he loves his clothes, his kit design. He had a fashion line with Jacob Umanga, who's playing with Benetton as well, and England and Samoa. And he wants to design Benetton's kit for next season. It's obviously a URC level team, and he wants to design their kit. And he loves all this stuff. And he was talking about that as well.
And they have a pretty good jersey at the best of times.
They got some brilliant. Actually, he was talking about their post-match kit. It's beautiful. I'm in Treviso a little bit for commentaries, and next time I'm there, I'm 100% swinging by the club shop on my travels.
Absolutely,
a prosecco and a new top to take home with me. But I think I'm encouraged by that growing. I think I wouldn't quite call it embracing. I would say more of a gentle hugging of pop culture with rugby, where you're seeing some of the rugby jerseys come back into sort of mainstream fashion, like the kind of the old school, the cotton jersey with the long sleeves, and the collar. Back in Adidas leaning into that a bit. There's a brand here called Counter Rock that some of the Australian listeners might not be as familiar with. They're doing a lot in that space just now and are building a big social media following, and their stuff is really cool. So I think it's another nod towards that, and it is a beautiful colours. Even though the cardigan, the kind of the anthem jacket, it's beautiful.
It's so good, and I think jersey suppliers and probably teams, to be fair, are realizing that people want to be able to show their support, but they don't necessarily want to be walking around in blazing in sponsors and all that sort of stuff. And so they're putting more stuff out like this, and it's just so good. You're right. We do love a jersey here, and you see something like that and you just go, all right, well, we have to buy another one. And here I was coming on tonight, I was thinking, I need something Scottish for Jamie. And well, the best I could do, mate, is a Bath jersey with tenuous thin ruffles.
Is that from the cup win in the 90s, that one, or is that a bit later? That's more recent.
It's the Canterbury edition, and I've got to admit this one was an absolute eBay bargain that I could not let go. Anyway, this is what we love doing this for.
Well, mate, we've got plenty of Scottish connections. You can obviously go back to Andy Nicol, former Scotland captain. He was member of the Bath team that won the European Cup in the 90s.
There's a long line of Scotland internationals.
Loads.
So many.
And obviously Finn Russell, we won the treble. I'm going to talk about Finn a lot, I'm sure, over the next little while. Finn Russell, Josh Bayliss are all there. Jamie Batty was there recently. There's been no shortage of Scots donning the blue, black and white. So I'll accept your offering. Thank you, mate.
Excellent. No, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. The great rugby chats continue in just a second after you all hit the red subscribe button down there in the bottom corner. If you're on the YouTube page, hit follow, hit like, hit subscribe, whatever it is on the pod platform you're listening to. And wherever you are, make sure the notifications are turned on as well. Six Nations round 4 coming up this weekend. You had a nice weekend off. You've just been telling me off air, but you're back into it well and truly this weekend. I mean, the tournament's been fantastic so far, mate. There's been great games every weekend, and again this weekend, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, France, Italy, England. There's 3 games there that, for 3 different reasons, are every bit as intriguing as each other. What do you like this weekend?
I think you've summed up really well, mate. Like there are 3 games that have got brilliant narrative woven through them, and 3 games. I think Ireland will take care of Wales on the Friday night. But had that game been in Cardiff, then you'd be looking at it slightly differently based on the way Wales played against Scotland. I think there's such intrigue and jeopardy throughout this competition, and I think we're at a point now where, you know, that there was a lot of gnashing of teeth over for a time over Scotland's failings. I'm talking early part of the millennium, over Italy's failings, and seeming. A lot of people thought they would never really belong at this level. They would never really prove that they're credible at this level. And how long is it going to take? And it's been 10 years, it's been 20 years, and it's just Sergio Parisi and Bergamo. Where's the rest of them coming through? And actually, Italy have got their house in order domestically. Their academy system's outstanding. Their 20s go very well. Their 18s are going better, and they've got a team that can now compete with every side in the championship.
Absolutely.
So Wales are clearly in a horrific spot domestically with their game and all the kind of turmoil elements of it that we won't go into just now. But in terms of possibly, I mean, as you guys have been through in Australia, in terms of potentially losing a team or shrinking from 5 to 4 in your case, from 4 to 3 in Wales's case. So we need Wales to be strong and to be credible, and they were very much. I mean, they were more than that against Scotland. They
were excellent. They were excellent.
So impressive.
There's an argument they deserve to win it, mate. They really deserve to
win. I wouldn't quibble with that. I think with a bit more experience now and a bit less sort of recent trauma of losing test matches and often losing them at a canter by massive scores, Wales probably get over the line. I think they just lacked a little bit of street smarts. I mean, the restart. We'll go on about this. The restart from Finn Russell to Darcy Graham, that should never happen at test level. No. It's an unbelievable the vision, the skill, and the awareness. You know, the execution, fantastic, but that shouldn't happen. And if you know Scottish rugby,
not at this level.
No, I mean, listen, Glasgow do it routinely. It's a Glasgow call. Glasgow do it routinely under Franco Smith. They'll get the ball off the kick-off and they will sprint up the pitch and play the restart as quickly as they can. And Wales should have been alive to that because Scotland do it. It's a very, very Glasgow-centric squad, minus 3 or 4 key players at the moment. And the irony being it was a Bath player and an Edinburgh player who had combined to score the try. So that was a shocker from a Welsh perspective. There were question marks, I think fair question marks, over a couple of refereeing decisions around. There was a croc roll from Thomas Williams that, letter of the law, is a penalty, but if it's against you, you're spewing. And then Matt Fagerson's maul entry right at the end for the winning try. look to me to be in front of the ball carrier. I'm sure
that's
former host Harry
that
might
seems
have
to be allowed.
thoughts on the schematics of malls and everything like that. But they
You
probably
see
got
that a lot by now.
Well.
You really do.
Yeah, and that often gets picked up now. So maybe there was some other technicality that I didn't see that meant it was legal, but it didn't look great on the replay. So I think what we've got now is we've got a situation where Ireland Wales is probably the clearest cut of the three. But I mean, Italy and England, what a game that is now. Italy have never beaten England.
If it was at Twickenham, you would never even think about saying the sentence that you've just said. But the fact that it's in Italy, it's going to be at home. They've been playing incredibly well. At the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, the support is going to be unbelievable. The atmosphere is going to be unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be something?
Well, I mean, Italy can play the same way and exploit the same problems with England that Scotland and Ireland did. And there's an argument, actually a very compelling one based on rounds 1 and 2. Italy have got a better set piece than both teams. Italy battered Ireland and battered Scotland at the scrum. Simone Ferrari was levering Irishmen out of the scrum like a forklift truck in round 2 in Dublin.
Said to Brett McKay only 2 weeks ago. When have you seen Ty Furlong lifted like he was in a scrum?
I know. I mean, they've got, and to be fair, give him his credit, and he is the great professor of modern rugby. But Rassi Erasmus had a bit to say about this in November. I mean, I actually commentated on the Italy-South Africa game, and yes, there was an early red card. I think Franco Mostert got himself red carded early in the match, and it was a problem for the box because they'd had Diacher sent off in Paris, then they get Mostert sent off in Rome.
That's
I
right.
think it might actually been in Torino now. I say that.
That was that little period they were losing a lock or a back row every week, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I think we always say up here, like when the apocalypse comes, all that'll be left is 23 blokes in green and gold. I don't know how they do this, but they dig themselves out of so many holes. And Italy had them on. I wouldn't say had them on the ropes, but obviously after the red card, the home crowd. They were bashing away a long time, and they were physically credible against that pack, which is really something because there's most teams. I mean, I've seen Scotland play that Springbok team a few times, and it's almost like you have to find a way of outboxing them with your backs and with the shapes that you can weave because you're not going to go through them. You're not going to get through that blitz. You're not going to get through them up front, and your scrum is going to come under massive pressure. Now, obviously, inevitably, on came the bomb squad, and even without 8 blokes on the pitch,
and we know how it ended. Yeah,
and it ended in a comfortable. Ethan Hooker scored it. It was a comfortable win, but I think Italy have been building for a long time, and actually, the last 3 or 4 years, Italy have been a very good side at Six Nations level. There were a couple of body blows. The World Cup in 23 was a real sickener for them, and that was a line in the sand moment of saying, look, we got a bit too loose and we're playing a bit too much rugby, and they got walloped by France and by New Zealand when they were expected to be at least competitive against both nations, given the players they have. So I think Italy now have got a team that is capable of beating England. And
they could do the funniest thing this weekend. Like they could seriously do something unbelievably
remarkable. And I think it would be. I have my doubts as to whether it'll happen, but they have the weaponry to play and do the things that Scotland and England did very, very well. I mean, Scotland and Ireland did, beg your pardon, in terms of they can go up and compete in the air. If anyone want to play that game, Liner, particularly Ioane, he comes back into the team. You'd imagine will be exceptional in the air. They've got arguably the best midfield pairing in Europe at the moment. Bearing in mind France are on to the 3rd or 4th choice centres at the moment, you would say Brex and Menoncello. Brex, I think, is back for this game.
Menoncello is playing so good.
He's back. Menoncello's. I mean, you talk to coaches about Menoncello. I've spoken to 2 coaches that have coached him. Paul Gustard, who had him before he went to Stade, and Callum McRae, who's Scottish head coach of Benetton just now. Most gifted athlete they've ever coached. Pretty much the exact same quote. Speaking years apart, the guy is. I mean, thoroughbred doesn't do it justice. So they've got this incredible blend of skill sets and similar physiques. Brex is a big man as well, by the way. Brex is 6'4". Menoncello, obviously, you see the thighs, the quads, the muscle tone on him. He's a proper animal. But he can play, and it's no surprise. These guys, Brex has gone to Toulon, Menoncello signed for Toulouse, and that backline of Galacticos, and Dupont, and Kinghorn, and Capozzo, and Ramos, and all these ridiculous talents. So they've got that. They've got smart halfbacks that can play and kick well. They've got an amazing scrum and set piece, and they've got really strong breakdown exponents as well. They've got front rows. The guys like Fischetti are excellent on the ball, depending on what back row they go with. They've got Cannone, the younger of the two, is a brilliant carrier. So is his brother on the second row. They've then got Giuliani, who's playing unbelievable rugby. Lamero's not even guaranteed a starting spot because Giuliani is so effective. So it'll be really interesting to see. I think if Italy are within a score at half-time with that crowd, it'll be a hell of a second 40 on Saturday. I think that's honestly, as much as I'm working at the Scotland-France game, that's probably the game I'm looking forward to most, is seeing, okay, Italy have had a bit of praise, a bit like Scotland. Italy over the years, Italy have had a bit of praise. They've done a job. They've taken a scalp. Now, can they stay at that level? Can they maintain? Can they build? Can they get better? There's nothing so far in the performances to suggest they're going to fall off a cliff or they're going to fall flat. But a bit like Wales,
can they get that second win?
It's can they really grasp the nettle? And I suppose, mixing metaphors, have that killer instinct where we can do this. We have got the players and the capabilities to do this. Because it's all well and good saying it, but until you've broken. I mean, Scotland went through a phase of this earlier in Gregor Townsend's tenure where they smashed a few glass ceilings. There's one fucking massive glass ceiling still unbroken, which we'll talk about shortly. But they beat France in France. They beat England, and then beat England routinely. They beat Wales in Wales. They beat the Wallabies home and away a couple of times. Which haven't done for a while. They obviously haven't done Ireland, which is a huge one. They haven't done New Zealand, which is that was a real sore one. They've had two real near misses against New Zealand.
Really
and they haven't beaten South Africa, which again is no great surprise given the way South Africa can play. It's the most anti-Scotland way in terms of the personnel that Scotland have. It's probably the most effective game plan you could have against Scotland, which is basically like kick the shit out of them,
make them go.
Exactly. So, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And that's what I love about South Africa, is that they can win in so many different ways, and they're developing a pace. So it's a great weekend, mate. Honestly,
it is.
I love looking forward to most.
I love that you've set this up perfectly just to get into Scotland, France. And so the question that I wanted to put to you, mate, is this Scotland's moment? Because if they can beat France, then what have they got the following week? They've got
to go to Dublin on
Ireland to finish. Yeah. I mean, is this their moment? It'd be a hell of a weekend this weekend.
I mean, we've asked that same question every year, I think, since I was about 14 years old. It was perennial Scotland, the dark horses this year, dark horses.
Yeah.
And then we had the group, which would have been Finn Russell, Stuart Hogg, Sean Maitland, Tommy Seymour, Alex Dunbar, John Barclay, all these guys in their sort of younger years, or in their pub, some of the older guys, Greg Laidlaw, Ross Ford, and you go, there's enough there to do something, to start winning some big games, and they did. And then Gregor Townsend took them on further, and now we've got this exceptional class of backs, and I think one or two exceptional forwards. And I honestly don't know. I think these 2 weeks will probably determine where Scotland are overall.
Yes, that's fair.
We're actually, I had this chat. We did a column with Johnny Beattie, former Scotland number 8, who happens to live just over there, actually around the corner. And we do a column for Rugby Pass together, where we'll to shatter the mystique of journalism. Some of these chaps don't necessarily want to write their own column, so a helpful journalist will go for coffee and a bacon roll.
Surely, Jamie, you're not telling me.
And we will write down what they think.
The columns.
Some sort of coherent. Johnny is easily eloquent and academic enough to write his own column, but he prefers not to. So,
he's got quite used to the bacon sandwich.
Well, there's a bit of that. He's quite used to coffee, bacon roll, But he doesn't need any prompting. And we were sort of having this exact conversation for his column, and we were saying, this is the defining point for Scotland. Are we any further forward with Scotland than we were at the end of November? No, we're not. All the same flaws and failings and frustrations are still very, very apparent. So we're no further forward in saying, all right, here they are, that they belong in this bracket or that bracket. It's all the same questions we were asking in November around physicality and mentality and decision making are all there. And all the kind of the maddening, like it would drive you. It's a wonder I'm not bald, honestly. It would drive you nuts trying to figure out why are they so inconsistent. And Johnny's theory, and I tend to agree with it, is that it's personnel. It's not necessarily mindset. It's not that players are weak or get the yips or go, oh God, oh we might win this game. Oh no, we've messed up. I don't think it's that. I think it's just like there are obvious limitations in that team, particularly up front, where Scotland do not have a set piece they can hang their hat on. They don't have a France Malherbe, a Winnie Atonio. I appreciate he's not been in great form for quite well now, but a Taniela Tupou. We don't have a player like that to unleash on 50 minutes. We're bringing off good and hard-bitten and incredibly diligent Prem players like Elliot Miller-Mills, who I thought was outstanding against Wales and very good against England, but with respect is not of the level of a guy who's starting in a Lions series, for example. And Will Hurd would be similar. And we haven't produced guys like that for quite a long time. We haven't produced, mega loose heads and tight heads for quite a while, and that is a problem. We don't have, 135 kilo lock. We don't have a Will Skelton or a Sneyman or a Meafu or a Paul Willemse, to name check a few. We don't have a Tamati Williams, for example. We don't have those sorts of blokes. And as much as the SRU have been very good at going to other countries to try and locate them with Scottish ancestry, there aren't too many of them out there with that size and the right age profile. So there's a few coming through that we're excited about, but I think those physical limitations, we're always gonna crash into those physical limitations. And if you can't bank on putting it in the corner and putting a line that under pressure, you can't bank on your scrum winning your penalty here and there to get you up the field, to give you territory, to squeeze the game, then you've got to rely on the brilliance of Finn Russell and those outside him to put us in winning positions and to keep us there. And I think that's always where the Scotland team will fall down a little bit, is that, I mean, you look at the England game, I'm amazed England didn't challenge Scotland's line out more often, given how catastrophically it fell apart in the rain in Rome. And they didn't. And with Steve Borthwick, you think it's going to be an obvious area to go after. They didn't really go after it first half hour. And by that point, Scotland were 3 tries up. But the only area Scotland didn't dominate was the scrum, because they haven't got the personnel.
Because they haven't the ability to do it.
No, and Italy, Ferrari and co won a few scrum penalties off. I think they won 3 scrum penalties off Scotland, which, seeing how Italy have gone, is no shame in that. But that was a problem. If the brilliance, if the magic isn't happening for Scotland in the backs, they struggle. And we saw that in Cardiff. The magic wasn't quite happening. They made a load of line breaks and didn't finish them. And our big issue is, I actually think it's conversion. It's not conversion of line breaks. It's what happens. It's
converting the opportunities.
I think like it's not even from that. It's more a case of, we'll do something amazing in the middle third of the pitch. We'll create a beautiful opportunity, and we'll get into the 22, and then if we don't score off the next phase or 2 phases, we're in trouble, because the defence is set. And generally speaking, that's when you go one-out runners and you go bang and you go power. And that's where traditionally Joe Schmidt, Ireland, for example, we just keep the ball and pound the rock and bang. And we lose power and lose impotence because we don't have too many beasts to get us there. We don't have that serum accuracy in the contact area that Ireland had with Schmidt. We don't have the physical specimens that France, South Africa, to a lesser extent New Zealand and England actually have as well. We can't do that. So that's when Scotland run into problems.
Ireland should almost be your model, though, because they're in the same boat. They're not blessed with big. They're not blessed with big giant tight 5 players. So they don't have an abundance of big strong South African type bodies, Polynesian type bodies. So they've had to find a few ancestral Irish people as well. But they've also thought, well, if we can't play through them, then we need to beat them with skill, and we need to beat them on the edges. And so, they've played that way. There's elements of that in what Scotland do. But you're right. If they can't get that platform, if they don't earn the right, if you like, to play wide, was it the Wales game that I heard the stat, and maybe it was first half where Scotland had a dozen or more 22 entries, but no points from them. And weren't able to convert a
I mean, that was my point, was that Scotland are very efficient in terms of the middle third of the pitch because they've got space, they've got time, and the defences generally aren't as congested. You've got obviously wingers and a fullback potentially in the backfield, or a scrum half covering depending on how or a 10 depending on how a team sets up its backfield defence. So there are more opportunities, generally a bit more time and space. And Scotland have got some serious weaponry there. I mean, Finn Russell is one of the best 10s in the world. Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones are certainly one of the best midfield pairings in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, when those three are
playing great.
Yeah, when those three are playing together, it's just awesome to watch. Usually Sione takes the ball flat and pulls it back to Finn. Sometimes he carries. Sione's got a great short kicking game. Hugh Jones he runs lines like nothing I've seen from a Scotland player. His angles of running, so incisive. And these guys, I think the frustration is it's harnessing that, and they harnessed it very well against England. And in a weird way, I think the way that England plays suits Scotland very well. And I actually think
clearly
the way that France play as well often suits Scotland. The way France typically would want an open game, but they also, previous under Galtier, they would kick a lot. Scotland want the ball. Scotland want possession. They do not want to be, sticking it up in the air and box kicking all the time. The demands of international rugby and the trends of it dictate you have to do a lot more of that than you would have done 10 years ago. But Scotland want possession. They want to play. They want to get the ball and use the backs that they have to play, to offload, to put these shapes together. And I actually think for all the stick Gregor Townsend gets, and we'll talk about Gregor in a bit, but for all the stick he gets, he has done a pretty good job overall with the tools that he has. And he's done a pretty good job in putting together a game model that is exciting to watch, that can stress and beat some of the big boys, and plays the strengths of his player group. He's a very, very intelligent man, but I think we're always going to run into those shortcomings, and it's finding a way of, in round 3 in Cardiff, they found a way of overcoming those deficiencies. Pierre Schoeman came on and won a big scrum penalty. They actually scored the line-out try twice at the end. They ran a trick play that was called back because somebody was in the 5-metre channel. I don't actually know what the infringement was, but it wasn't legal, so they scored it and it got called back. Then they went to the mall and scored again. And that was actually quite refreshing to see Scotland win that way. But at its core, it was still that the game hinged on that inspired moment from Finn Russell, Darcy Graham, and the call from Matt Fagerson to tell the guys that it was on. So I think be interested to see what France do. I mean, France have an open game suits Scotland, but I actually think this France team, it suits them very well as well, because they will score from anything. The number of tries they've scored
because they can.
Totally. And it's very similar to what Bordeaux and Toulouse do. No surprise, because they're the two best teams in France, arguably the two best teams in Europe just now, where any opportunity becomes a line break, becomes a try.
They don't need 22 entries, do they? Because they can score from halfway.
Right, I watched Bordeaux play Bristol. I was commentating on a game afterwards, and we had it on in the press room. I watched Bordeaux play Bristol. Louis Bielbarré scored a hat-trick. 0 rucks involved. Not a single ruck involved in any of his tries. Because it was a turnover, and he either picked it up or kicked it through, and just beat people with speed and evasion and agility. And it's that ruthlessness, it's that ability to just go bang. And they've got it with, I'm not sure if he's fit, they've got it with Jalibert, they've got it with Ramos, they've got it with Atisogbe and Bielbarré. They've got an unbelievable array. And you think about it, Gael Ficou's a bit long on the tooth now. He's not picked, even though they're down, I think, 3 or 4 centres. Damien Penaud, who's got just about the best strike rate of any win. It's him and Will Jordan basically are neck and neck for strike rates in Test rugby. doesn't he get picked just now because he's not been playing well enough for Bordeaux defensively and in the air? I think his it's where they see his deficiencies, which would have been unthinkable a year ago that Pinot doesn't get into a French Six Nations.
Absolutely.
Not into 23, but not into the 35-man squad. It's ridiculous. So they will hoover up crumbs in the de rigueur rugby terminology of the day and score from them liberally. And we've seen that over and over and over again. But I don't think that's necessarily the way you want to beat Scotland. You make it loose, and Scotland will quite enjoy that. You'd argue France are more effective at it just now in terms of just scoring from nothing. But if you have an open game with high ball in play, that's what Scotland want. That's what Finn Russell wants. I would actually, if I was France, I would probably tighten up a bit this weekend and just go, well, we know our pack is dominant, is bigger, is more abrasive, is more, I don't want to say dynamic forwards, but they've got Scotland for physicality and strength up front, and certainly got them at set piece. So I would probably go, right, we'll want Manny Miafu to have 25 carries in this game, and I want my Mikel Guillards of the world to have 15, 20 carries, and I want to just bludgeon Scotland and run it
straight through the front door.
Exactly, just bang down the front door. And I'm sure they'll do that at times, because Galtier and Townsend are very, very, very smart coaches. Different men, different approaches, but very, very intelligent rugby minds.
Yeah.
So if I was France, I'd lean that way.
What's the thinking then going into the last round with the table sitting the way it is? France 15, Scotland 11, Ireland 9, England 5, and obviously Italy and Wales following that. What's the thinking this weekend about how this weekend coming sets up Super Saturday the following weekend to finish it?
Well, it's very rare that a team wins a slam well. And I don't mean that they don't deserve to win a slam. I mean, normally, a team that wins a championship, particularly a slam, chucks in one, as they say where I come from, one shanner, like one rubbish performance, one dud performance, and wins. Wales have done it over the years. Ireland have done it over the years. Probably England too. In 16 under Eddie Jones, they were dominant, but they didn't batter 5 teams out of 5. So at some point, I think France will win a Grand Slam, but I think Saturday's dangerous for France because it's. I'm not going to get into national stereotypes, but I think France have got a sloppy away performance in them at some point.
They do.
And they've not got a brilliant. I mean, Scotland have actually got a pretty good record against France, particularly at home over the last sort of 5-10 years. So I think that's a dangerous fixture for France. I do think they'll win, but it's a dangerous fixture for France. So and I think they can't. It's very, very rare. In fact, it's almost never happened that a team has gone 5 really comfortable, comprehensive wins out of 5 when it's been a slam. Normally, there's one where they're just off it. I mean, that's totally normal, right? You get 5 stellar performances in a row. It's unlikely.
The good teams find a way.
And that's the great thing about the Six Nations as well, is that there's constant jeopardy and there is an ability. That's why it's so important that there isn't, two. I mean, everyone. I understand where this narrative came from. At the start of the championship, people were really worried about, is this going to be a bit of a turkey shoot for England and France? It's going to come down to the last day of the championship. It's going to become like a 2-horse race because these are the biggest teams with the most resources, and they're flying right now. England are 12 in a row. France have got their metaphorical.
Borthwick said it outright, didn't he? He said we want to get the reward in the last weekend, and right now
and that's about as bullish as Steve Borthwick gets in the media. He's no one that's prone to making big proclamations. I mean, or saying much at all, to be honest. So I think people really worried about that. But the great romance and charm and love for the Six Nations is that there is jeopardy throughout it. That you've got teams that are capable of beating each other on any given day, and we're seeing that.
Great about this weekend.
Nobody saw. I mean, Ireland were smashed, like eviscerated in Paris in round 1. It was a proper scudding. Scotland got bullied in the rain in Rome. Wales were blown apart by England. Two of those results were. I mean, you could argue all 3 went in terms of. Yeah, fair enough. That sounds about right. But the way they went, probably not. Then round 2, Italy are within a forward pass of winning in Ireland. I'm still not sure that pass was forward, and obviously other things could happen, but like that almost happens. You've then got a Scotland team where the coach is under the most pressure any Scotland coach has been under for 20 years, and I would actually think the majority of fans. It's hard to gauge these things, but I think the opinion had swung so far against Gregor Townsend.
He was under the pump. He was in the crosshairs.
It felt a bit like,
I
won't say dead man walking, but we were approaching lame duck territory. I think if we lost that, and actually the funniest thing about this whole Scotland Six Nations is that from week to week the narrative is going zoom zoom zoom. So in a position where round one, Gregor's under huge pressure because of what happened in November. For Aussie listeners in particular, Scotland 17-0 down against the ABs at home, get back to 17-0, almost score a try to go in front. Darcy Graham knocks on, brilliant cover tackle from McKenzie, I think. And then Scotland totally fall apart. They lose the grip of the game. The All Blacks come back, score 10 points. McKenzie, unbelievable try, conversion, penalty, and kills us. And it was a huge opportunity for a first win.
Got away with a game they shouldn't have
ever. Yeah, and it's another sort of gallant loser story. Argentina the following week, Scotland by contrast are 21-0 up. Now, if you took the middle half an hour from the All Blacks game and the first half an hour from the Argentina game, put it together, you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is like, and it's not even like results wise, just the way they played. The tries they scored against New Zealand, particularly the second try for Kyle Steyn, that was some of the best rugby I've ever seen a Scotland team play in terms of the cohesion, the variety, the continuity, the power in some of the carries. You're like, oh my God. And you go, Jesus, why can we not do this for more than like 10 minutes at a time? And you still had, Leroy Carter went in the bin, Ardi Savia went in the bin, I think somebody else. I think they ended up, we were playing against 14 for 50 minutes cumulatively.
Yes, they had 3 cards, New Zealand. Yeah, they did too. Yeah,
there was multiple cards, and you're like, Jesus. And obviously Argentina, they come back, and Argentina got 4 unanswered tries. And you're like, how can we not change the momentum in this game? So Gregor was under huge pressure coming into it. Then they lose in Rome in insipid fashion, exposing all the same flaws that were exposed in November.
Yeah.
And they went 2 tries down while it was still dry. Then a rainstorm came. And you can't play like Scotland playing there. It's impossible to hold the ball. You can't. And then you're in the worst position possible in a deluge, which is chasing a rugby match. No, you can't do that at that level. And Italy, yes, they're not a winning machine, but they're smart enough and shrewd enough to see a game out like that. And they
certainly knew how to play the conditions on that day.
Of course they did. So that was a problem. So Gregor, at that point, people are like, Gregor's got to go. And I actually thought at the time, I don't think Gregor survives this, and I'm not sure he deserves to survive this. Not this one result, but if that's the way the Six Nations is going to go, a long way to go. But let's say Scotland finish up with 2 wins out of 5 off the back of November, don't play well. I don't know why you wouldn't make a change at that point. I'm not saying that somebody else, that Franco Smith's done remarkable stuff at Glasgow, as by the way Gregor did before. Gregor won a title for Glasgow in 2015 in different circumstances with different players, and a young Finn Russell and so on. Franco's done it a different way, but it's the old change nothing, nothing changes. It just felt like we're going round in circles, Groundhog Day.
Yes.
We're not. And
Groundhog Day is a great way of putting it, because we come into a Calcutta Cup game. He's in the crosshairs. They win, and I mean, he probably would have signed the contract extension on full time, I'd imagine.
No, see that's I think that's one of these things as well, mate, where I think there's a perception that certainly amongst certain English pundits that a win over England absolves all sins. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. Not just because, I'm 32, so when I was a kid, beating England was like a sort of a core memory. It was like a childhood-defining event because it never happened. Like when I was a kid, one of the first games I remember watching was 2000. I was 6, and my dad had gone to the game. I think he'd wanted a few beers, so I was not accompanying him that day. And it was a rainstorm, and Duncan Hodge scored all 19 points, and it stopped England winning a Grand Slam and stopped Scotland ending up bottom of the pile. And we won 1913 last round of the Six Nations, and it took England slam away. And it was great. Then we didn't beat them again until 2006, and it was a shit fight. No try scored for Scotland. I think it was like 18-13. Beat them again in 2008. No tries scored. It was all Parks and Patterson kicking points, and England being a bit crap really, and Scotland just digging in and being gritty and mugging them really. And that was what a Calcutta Cup win was. It was fleeting. It was ugly, but it was beautiful in a Scottish sporting sense.
And it's forever a great memory.
Aye.
Yeah.
And then you wait, and it's 10 years until 2018, and Scotland carved England apart, having shipped 60 at Twickenham the year before, and then since then Scotland have dominated this fixture. When I was a kid, it was unthinkable that Scotland would have the record they have, and it still is a nonsense. There's no way when you compare resources, budgets, playing numbers, population, money, everything else that's involved in these things, and Scotland should not hold a candle to England. Nor, by the way, should a few teams in the Six Nations. But that's the beauty of sport. So that now, people obviously love it and they demand it and they celebrate it, but it doesn't just magically fix a Six Nations. It doesn't change. If Gregor lost last week in Wales, the same questions. That's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
We're no further forward because we're doing this again.
Yes,
I'm moving my arm like a roller coaster for the benefit of listeners. But like we're doing these crazy fluctuations where, nothing actually has changed. Scotland have beaten England again, fantastic, and they stuffed them, and they should have won by more. To be honest, I mean they
agree.
They feasted on England's mistakes, and I think an 11-point deficit was actually quite flattering to how poorly England played on the day, and Scotland could probably have run up a record score.
England got 2 late tries too, didn't they?
They got a couple of late tries. I mean, listen, 2 of Scotland's tries came from one was a charge down drop goal, an 80-yard run. The other one was Ellis Genge dropping over his own line in a position where you've got to give him credit for covering. He just skill execution when he's knackered lets him down a little bit. But again, that's 14 points where you go, it's great play from Finn Russell to set up the Genge spill for Ben White, and it's great play from Matt Fagerson to get up and charge down George Ford. But as much as he was poor against Ireland, have you ever seen George Ford get charged down for a drop goal? Because I haven't. So it's things like that. Where we exposed England's flaws and then capitalised on them in a really ruthless way, which was great. But again, the narrative is going zhoof, zhoof, zhoof,
and it's all over the place. So now
under the cosh, then he's got a bit of breathing space. But just beating England is never enough now. It's never enough, and it hasn't been for quite a long time. I'd say since pre-COVID, it hasn't been enough to. No, I mean it's never been enough for the players to beat England and everything's okay, but it's no longer enough for sections of support who would have at least hung their hat on that and gone, well, we beat the English. Yeah, that's a sort of mentality that we as a country, I'd like to think, have moved on from, where it's a small-minded kind of as long as we beat England, it's all right. Whether it's political or sporting or cultural, I don't know. But there are neighbours and our rivals, and Jesus, it's brilliant to beat them. But it wouldn't, if Australia, if the Wallabies go and beat the All Blacks twice in Rugby Championship, does it make it all right if you finish third? Yep. Probably not. You know what I mean? So
it definitely does. It definitely does. After 26 years, mate, it definitely
currently
does.
It probably would do, because you're in that position now where you've had that long wait like we have as well.
I know what you mean, but no,
the great anxiety, mate. I'll finish this sort of rambling rant about Scotland and England and cultural sensitivity with the great anxiety around Gregor is not that he's a bad coach or that he's not, that he's underperforming massively. I think the great anxiety is we don't want to die wondering as a rugby nation.
Yeah.
We don't want to go through 3 World Cups with this guy. And I don't mean to be, I'm not being disparaging by calling him this guy. I'm just saying with this coach. And never know what might have happened had we given someone else a shot. And I think a lot of fans, the more fair-minded fans, look, history will judge Gregor Townsend very, very positively. In the fullness of time, when we're doing another podcast in 20 years, and I have lost all my hair, and we're talking about, remember Scotland's dominance in the Calcutta Cup in the 2020s. History will judge Gregor Townsend very, very well for what he's done and what he's given and what he's produced and what he's got out of this Scotland team. But in the short term, it was getting very, very toxic. After November, the team were booed off. How often do you hear an international rugby team booed off? I mean, I've heard that once at Murrayfield, I think, and it was when Matt Williams, good old Matt Williams, was in charge, the worst Scotland coach statistically of all time, who lasted about 10 months and made a load of calamitous decisions, and then spent the next 20 years bitching about how everybody had it in for him.
Yes.
Like that was a problem. So I think the anxiety was that are we not squandering, but are we failing to maximise what we all recognise is a really special group of players that we have not had for a long, long time, for 20 plus years. They're not a golden generation. We need to bin that term right away because golden generations win trophies. But they're a group of players who are superior to what's come before them for 25, 30 years, arguably longer in terms of their skill sets. So the anxiety would be that those guys come, go, retire and win no trophies.
Yeah.
They get individual results. They smashed all the hoodoos they spoke about,
They need something to show for it.
But there's got to be something tangible. There's got to be a trophy at the end of it. And for Gregor, it's this year or it's next year. Scotland will get out of the group in the World Cup. They won't get another pool stage exit because the expanded format. There's going to be obviously out. But then it's like, well, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with an Ireland or a France or a South Africa or a New Zealand. You're going to run into the same opposition that beat you routinely. What's changed in that time to finally get it over the line? And it just feels like we were going down the same avenue over and over again and expecting a different destination. I think that was the anxiety with Gregor. It's not that he's a bad bloke, a bad coach. It's just he's been there a long old time. 10 years by the time the World Cup comes around is a long time for any coach in professional sport nowadays, particularly the way rugby's going, to get 3 World Cups and 2 full cycles, 1 half cycle, and to have this group of players. It feels like this group should have been good enough to be consistent enough to challenge for a title. And not only have they never won a title, they've never gone into that Super Saturday in the graphic you showed with an arithmetical chance of winning a title. Not once.
Yeah, and they've got it, and they could do it this weekend. Mate, it's been great to catch up, as always. There is so much on the line this weekend. There's going to be so much on the line the last weekend as well. I hope it... I will be genuinely thinking of you, and I'm certainly going to try and watch that game live on the weekend. It's just going to be a ripper. It just feels like this could be a moment. Thanks so much for going into the detail you have, mate. It's been great to catch up as always. Hear Jamie's great work on so many competitions and channels across the English season, the UK season, I should say. Thanks so much, mate. It's been great.
Thanks for having me, mate. Really appreciate it.
Loved having Jamie Lyall back on 8-9 Rugby for the first time in 2026, and the first time in a little while, but so good to tune into a test match or an ERC or a Prem game and hear his voice calling games. It's so good to see where he's got to and knowing how hard he's worked to get there. So good luck to him this weekend, and a couple of ripping games. Just to recap those: Ireland, Wales, Scotland, France, and then Italy and England. Those last 2 on Saturday. Ireland, Wales on Friday night beforehand. It's just going to set up the last weekend of the Six Nations so well. It really will. On 8-9 Rugby this week, Jono Drennan from the Sydney Morning Herald joins me on the next episode of the Oz Rugby Scene, where we'll get around another weekend of Super Rugby Pacific, which included a sweep of wins for the Australian side. So don't miss that on 8-9 Rugby on YouTube and wherever you pod as well. And have you found 8-9 Rugby on Substack yet? Jeff Parks and I have been busy over the Australian summer building up a new outlet for rugby coverage down our way, and we've smashed through 500 subscribers already inside a month, which we thank everyone for getting on board, and we really love everyone's support. So we hope that you can join us. We'll join in discussion. We've featured so many names that you know already, and well-respected opinions that you love as well. So find us on Substack, the new exclusive home of Jeff's very widely regarded column, The Wrap, every Monday, and plenty more great writing through the rest of the rugby week as well. That's another 8-9 Rugby episode behind us. My sincere thanks to Jamie Lyall once again. Tell us what you think by finding 8-9 Rugby on all the socials. You can have your say right here on the 8-9 YouTube channel. You can find me on the socials at 8-9 at BMC Sport as well. This is 8-9 Rugby. We'll be back in your ears this week with the Australian rugby scene.